Hello and welcome to Beyond the Scale, Weight Loss and Wellness. I'm your host, Coach Monica. I'm joined today by Coach Darcy, and we are here to guide you through the ins and outs of a lifestyle that's transformed not just our lives, but the lives of countless women navigating the waves of perimenopause and menopause. Whether you're here to shed weight, understand your body better, or simply find a community that gets it, you're in the right place. So sit back and enjoy the next few minutes as we tackle the hot issues of today. Welcome, Coach Darcy. It's so good to see you today. Are you ready for this show today?
I think so. It's good to see you too.
Yeah. I feel like it's been a while since we've been in the podcasting studio, but I think it was just last week.
I think it was last week. It seems like forever.
All these days run together in the summertime, but you have good news today. Things are really quiet at your house.
And if you hear anything, it's going to be Clark, my dog. But yeah, we had our first day of school yesterday, and my brain was so quiet and my whole house was so quiet, and it was just so nice.
It really is. I was told, I was expecting becoming empty nesters. I was expecting my life to just crash and be very sad and be depressed and anxious. And I completely had the opposite experience.
Yeah.
Like all my friends and even you this summer, oh, we're at the ball field. We got to do all these soccer games, everything. And I'm like, I don't. And I'm not even sorry about it. I don't feel like I miss it. Maybe
When
that
your
makes me.
grandson when you're in a season, you get a certain break. It's kind of like me and the baby. Like I didn't want to touch anybody's baby, like hold them
Yeah.
or anything like that until
Yeah.
my kids were far out of that stage. And then when, now that all these young people that I know are having babies, I'm like, I want to hold that baby. It might
Yeah.
be the same thing. Like when your grandson is in soccer or something or frisbee golf, whatever he's in, then you'll probably be like, I'm at every game. Let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I think this is a very sweet time in our lives for sure. And
Yeah.
Brian and I are still trying to figure it out. We're still trying to figure out like, hey, we can do whatever the heck we want today.
Right. Right. I love watching people's seasons in their life, and especially like with the baby season, and it's all about
Yeah.
babies and children and snacks and all those things. And then you get into my phase where it's all
Mm-hmm.
about, putting your kids in sports and blah, 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 being there at every single game and running around like a heathen. And then you get into your
Yeah.
stage where you're like, I don't know what to do. And
I
then you figure
know.
it out.
I
And then
know.
I love watching the couples that have figured it out and they're like out traveling,
Yeah.
they're retired, or they're finding a new something that they do together. It's my
Yeah,
favorite.
it is.
I love
And
it.
let me give you some marriage advice.
Oh, okay.
Marriage tips from Coach Monica. One of the things you should do when you're raising children is do not focus on the children. Focus on your marriage and focus on your spouse because at the end of the day, that's who you're left with.
Right.
Brian and
You
I are still
know,
friends. Now we had to figure it out a little bit. We were like,
mm,
are we friends? Are we friends? Do we laugh? And we had to figure out how to laugh again. That was challenging for us because
right.
we took life really seriously when the kids were here.
Yeah.
And we realized that we never laughed. And I didn't realize that we didn't laugh until I started watching TikTok. And I'm like, hey, all those people are laughing.
No, why aren't we?
Why aren't we
Right.
laughing, Brian?
Right. I remember back in the day, you gave me marriage advice,
I'm full of it.
and you said never get married. And then when I did get married, you said, Darce, never have kids. You know, that was your advice.
Well, maybe my marriage advice should not be followed, but it is true. It is true. We had fun with you guys this last weekend.
Yeah,
We
it was fun.
had fun and had fun looking at Jeeps with my husband. And
Hmm.
so yeah, yeah, have fun.
Yes.
Sure.
Have fun with each other.
That's right. Don't focus on the kids. The kids are going to leave you. They're going to go, they're going to move away, but then they come back. All of ours stayed home. I'm kind of glad about that. I
Like they're
realized,
still here.
yeah, around us. I mean, they don't live with
Right.
us.
Right.
Some of them do, but
Yes.
Yeah, we were empty nesters for approximately 3 months.
Wow.
They moved back.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, well,
Well,
today we're going to talk about something fun, because we're excited about it. As we have, as I launched the coaching business about 7 years ago, um, we had a plan. In fact, a client mentioned to me this week, in fact, in our session, she had me when I first opened my practice, and then she came back to me when she wanted to solidify, when she wanted to learn some of these new tactics that we were working with, and she said she stopped our session this week and she said, "Yeah, I just got to tell you, you're an entirely different coach." And she said, "You are not the coach that I hired the first time." And I was kind of bracing myself like,
yeah, I
"Oh,
was like, what
I'm
does that mean?
sorry. I'm sorry." And she's like, "No, it's a good thing." Because she's like, "I feel like you see my soul this time
Mm.
and you know what my body needs this time. Whereas last time you had book knowledge and you had a plan and we were not to divert from that plan." And
Yeah.
so that was cool
That
feedback because I
I
was
do get
scared.
that. Yeah. I
Yeah.
do remember going through that
Hmm.
the program the very first time, and I can relate with that. Everything was by the book. You do or do not. You
Right.
know, it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. And some of
so I
that
get
book
it.
knowledge is good. I mean, it's
Yes.
really, really good that we are overly educated. And
Experience is so much better.
yeah, I know what the pancreas does now.
Yeah.
I didn't know that before.
Right.
And it's good to know that. But honestly, when
Yeah.
I started my weight loss journey, I didn't care what the pancreas did.
Right.
And I would not have cared about what we're talking about today when I
Hmm.
first started because I was so defeated with my obesity. I was not ready for that. And so we encourage clients just to get in to understand the basics of keto before you even get into what we're talking about today. I'm not so sure I would start a brand new client out with this.
Yeah, I don't think
Um,
so.
I don't know. I could be talked out of that because it is such good science, but
Yeah. I think it
um,
depends on the person.
yeah, very
It
much
comes
so.
down to that.
Very much so. Because this isn't speed weight loss. What we're talking about today is not speed weight loss. It is hormones. It is all about making you feel better, all about making your body work better in order for it to release the body fat.
Hmm.
And so that's the benefit. And this is a brand new announcement too, because we really haven't talked about this
No.
since Fasting Like a Girl came out and becoming certified in that aspect. We really haven't talked about it because I didn't want to release a program until we were ready. Because I still had questions. You and I just hashed out a couple of questions ourselves.
Yes.
And so we're ready now. I mean, I could hold on to it another couple months, but I think we're ready to release this program to the world because it's changing lives. And so I think it's probably kind of selfish of us not to release it.
Right.
Because you're living it right
Yes,
now.
I
You're
am.
currently
I
living
am.
it.
I
And
am.
and you and I were talking before we started this and before we hit record today about the day that you found out
Yeah.
that something had changed,
Right.
right?
So
Talk a
you
little
know
bit
how
about that.
we just talked about how we went by the book. We went by the
Yes.
book about everything keto, and you feel great. You're losing the weight, and as you're losing the weight, then that's when you start to add the exercising in.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the day that I probably I was like pretty avid about going to my workout classes. And the first time I've got all this energy and I'm just on the go doing great, lifting 15 pounds and 20 pounds. And then the next week I basically felt out of breath, like as if I hadn't gone to the gym. I felt so different in my body, like I maybe was low on my electrolytes, something like that. But I knew that there was something that wasn't right in this lifestyle that I needed personally to ease into um my new life. Like I just felt that moment in that gym, like I worked so hard and then I felt like a failure. But then as we learn about fasting like a girl, we have a certain week that we have to give ourselves grace because
Mm-hmm.
that energy is going towards shedding our uterus lining. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
there's just some aha moments that I remember the day, I remember the moment, and I knew that something was different. And I went to you, and this is when we hadn't even thought about it yet. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that I don't know if there's anything that we would do any different.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like an awakening of like, oh, well, let's try this. When Mindy was talking and I first listened to her, I always send you all this stuff so
Yeah.
that you listen.
Yeah.
And it was that moment where I'm like, she's speaking my language. She's saying things that I'm feeling, and maybe there is something to this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's real, and even then, coach, we still tweak this because
Hmm.
we have enough experience under our belt to understand what works and what doesn't. And
Yes.
you don't need a PhD behind your name to understand that, hey, I tweaked it and this is where I feel the best. And
Yes.
so that's the ability, when you get when you get the book and you do it kind of do a DIY, you don't have that luxury of having a coach just say, "Hey, let's tweak this just a little bit. Let's add some carbs here. Let's do this," because your body is telling us something different. And so
Right.
I think
Right.
that is the exciting part about launching Ageless Keto with KM Health Coaching, because we have this experience now, you're living it, and you also have the added experience of adding the carnivore perspective to this. You've lived
Yeah.
both sides now.
Yeah, I have.
And so yeah, that's the really cool thing. So we are ready to take on clients for Ageless Keto at this point. So if you struggle with hormone imbalances, if you struggle with, first of all, not even knowing how your cycle works. I didn't know how my cycle worked until I didn't even have one anymore at perimenopause age. I wish I would have known all of this. I gave this to my
Right.
daughter-in-law, this book the other day to my daughter-in-law. I'm like, please know your stuff here because I didn't know. I did not know.
Right.
I just went with what life took me and I was miserable.
Right.
So basically, what we're going to do, we launched a 4-month program, and we need 4 months so that we can get you settled into your new cycle. Your cycle will take about 4 months just to level out after you change your hormones, after you change what hormones you feed at what time of the month, after you change your fasting, after you incorporate a fasting lifestyle. And so it takes about 4 months for you to really level out and feel a difference in your hormones.
Yeah.
The first month, we're just tracking. We are just tracking where you're coming from off the street, right? Because
Yeah.
you came to us as a hot mess. We've got to just figure out where you're coming from, what you're eating. We've got to teach you about the ketobiotic lifestyle. We've got to teach you about the hormone feeding foods. So the first month is just a bunch of learning and tracking your cycle, tracking what you're eating, those kinds of things. And then once you have the foundation of understanding that, then we're able to implement it. And we're able to say, okay, you started your cycle on this day. Here is your eating plan. Here is your calendar. Here's your fasting schedule, personalized, right? And for my perimenopausal sisters, okay, your cycle was really erratic. Here's what we do to try to either get it more regular, or as you go into menopause, help you go into menopause without all of those nasty symptoms. And for my menopause sisters, it is finding your calendar, and it's based off of the moon cycle. It's finding your calendar and your fasting schedule, whether it's the 4-2-1, whether it's the 5-1-1. We get you set up on a plan where you don't have the nasty symptoms anymore
Hmm.
of menopause. So a lot of our listeners don't even know what the phases of the cycle is. Now, I think we did a podcast earlier, probably earlier in the year about this, but let's just do a little bit of a review for for those who may not have caught that. So your cycle has 4 different phases, and we do something different. We feed every one of those hormones differently. So do you want to start us off with the first phase here?
Sure.
And we'll just break this down into the four levels, and then we'll just kind of recap what we do with these 4 cycles as we close out the podcast.
Right. So the first phase is phase one. It's not anything really creative, but it's your first phase. And during this phase, you have basically two breaks. You have the first break you have is bleed cycle. When you start your bleeding cycle, that's day one. And
Mhm.
then however long it takes for you to be on through your cycle, and then you have the last part of that. And that's a total of 10 days that you're going to be on that phase. Now, this is when you are building you're wanting to build the estrogen, and that is for the next phase. You're building the extra
Mhm.
estrogen for that next phase. And
In order
what,
to ovulate, you have to build estrogen.
yes,
Um,
yes.
I I want to highlight that. Yeah, you have to
Yep,
have it.
you have to have it. So in this phase, you're going to want to keep those carbs on the lower end, which would be what we would call what would we call it? I just had a brain fart.
Ketobiotic.
It
Yeah.
would be ketobiotic. So we would keep our carbs on the lower end, 50 net carbs or under, um, and making
And
sure, like, and it depends on where you are, because right now in our own personal studies, we
mhm.
find things are working differently. So,
Yeah, well,
um,
we put some of our clients on a carnivore
yes,
um um plan because they feel the best. You feel the
yes,
best on
I feel
carnivore.
the
So
best. Yes,
50, we don't even come close to 50 at that point.
no,
We are
nope.
lucky to get 10.
Right. And so that for me is the phase where if I have a tomato out of my garden, I know it's a nightshade. But if I have it's what's being grown in season, that is where my focus is. I'm pretty sure during the winter time, I'm going to be headed
Hmm.
more toward not carb,
Carnivore.
carnivore,
Yeah.
not carb. We want to go
Yeah.
carb in the winter time, but
Yeah.
so then back to being focused on phase one. You go through those phases, and this is when you can fast. Like if you're
Hmm.
adding fasting in your lifestyle, you can fast those longer fasts.
Hmm.
That is where, if you are looking to lose the weight, these are the certain phases that you're going to want to be hardcore on,
Hmm.
and where that weight will come off, because toward the end of the month, you're more than likely not going to be losing weight.
Hmm.
Um, so we'll explain that
Because
in
you're
a little
holding on
bit.
to water. Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
We'll
Yeah.
explain that
Yeah.
during that
Yeah.
phase.
So
So
you
power
can go
phase, the
from, yeah,
hormones are low right here.
yes, yes. Hormones are low. Estrogen is starting to peak, closer to going into this next phase.
Hmm.
So, what would that next
Yeah.
phase be, Monica?
Yeah. So the first power phase, your hormones are at its lowest. And when hormones are low, your fasting is high. Okay. So that's kind of how I try to remember it. But when hormones are high, this is a whole new set of feelings, and it's a whole new eating lifestyle, because when you hit the manifestation phase, which is the most powerful phase of the month, you have all of your hormones at their high peak. You've got estrogen is at its high, you've got testosterone, you've got progesterone. Every single hormone is partying. This is the party time for the hormones. And when hormones are high, you don't want to fast, because when your hormones are high, we've got to feed those hormones. We've got to get them to do their job. So estrogen's time in the sun, and this is where Coach Darcy and I were talking about what do we do with estrogen at this point, because estrogen does not like carbohydrates. And yet here it is at its peak here. And so what we talked about was the other two hormones, your testosterone and your progesterone, come into the party, and they are like, oh no, give me the carbs. They want the carbs. That's why during ovulation you're probably you may be craving some chocolate. You are feeling really, really good. This is the most powerful phase of the month, and that's day 11 through 15. And so what we need to do is we need to keep the fasting low. Fasting and progesterone are not one and the same. That does
Mhm.
not like. Now you can do an intermittent fast of 15 hours, and this is sometimes confused, because when I put my ladies on this plan, they're like, but you said not to fast. You can fast up to about 15 hours. You want to cut it off at that point. Okay. And we are eating different things to bring in the progesterone at this time. In fact, we forgot to mention, the estrogen building. Actually, no, it's during this phase. The estrogen foods, the foods the estrogen likes the most that you want to eat during this times, are things like flax seed, sesame seed, garlic, apricots, some dates, some prunes, some berries, and broccoli. Those kinds of things estrogen loves.
Fermented
Yes.
food,
Yes. So
things
you're
like
still
that.
feeding that
Yeah.
little estrogen in there.
Yeah.
But you're giving them a little bit more carbs, because we have to bring in the testosterone and the progesterone.
Yes.
which takes us over to the second power phase. You kind of
Right.
got to talk about both of those.
Because they're not really much different. But since I didn't mention this in the first phase, so you're gonna do the same, go back to switching over to fasting. You're gonna do between 13 and 72-hour fasts,
Hmm.
depending on how you're being trained. 72 is a really long time, and we don't do those very often, just
Hmm.
maybe a couple times a year for a purpose.
Yeah.
But what I didn't mention is between phase one and power phase, if you are in the gym and you're working out, you're going to have beast mode. And when I talked
Hmm.
about before not feeling the energy, or I had the energy and then I didn't have the energy, I could tell what phases I was in
Hmm.
based on the fact that I
More
felt
power.
like a beast. I had
Hmm.
more power. I had more drive to go to the gym. And
Hmm.
then, then I didn't. So
Hmm.
the phase, you continue doing ketobiotic, you continue fasting. And again, I'm going to repeat myself. This is when you're going to start the weight loss stuff. Like you're
Hmm.
going to, focus on that. Um,
A
and
really, really powerful fast during power phase one and power phase two is the 36.
yes.
If your goal is weight loss, the best fast you can do during those phases is is the 36 hour. I like to put my clients on a quarterly 72. Now they
Hmm.
got to be completely psyched up for it. They have got to well, I'm going to speak for myself on that. I have to be, some people thrive off of 72 hours. I don't. I
I
think those
know
people are
it
crazy.
hates me.
I hate them.
I
But
feel
if,
great though.
yeah, if you do one of those once a quarter, that brings in the heavy autophagy where your
Yeah.
body and your cells are eating themselves and getting all of those zombie cells out. But I would only do it during power phase one or power phase two. And remember, manifestation is in between those two.
Mhm.
So,
That's also jolting your body
oh
too.
yeah.
I think, if you get in a phase where you're, or a stage and season in your life where
Uh-huh.
you just aren't seeing any movement in the scale. So getting yourself metabolically switching back and forth
Mm-hmm.
is really ideal. And this is exactly what this is helping you do,
Mm-hmm.
is helping your body be able to metabolically switch back and
Yeah.
forth.
Strategically, I would probably put a client on a 72. If we had one scheduled, if they did it every quarter, I would probably put them on that day 16 to 19. And we would
Hmm.
just knock out a 72 right there, take care of some
Yeah.
autophagy, feel great at the gym. So that's probably strategically what I would do.
Yeah.
But the 36 is probably the best fat burner.
Yeah.
Now, if you are taking medication, I have a client currently right now who she's on medication. She can't do that. We do two and she's in my menopause group, we do two 24s
Mm.
during that power phase one. That's our plan of attack is doing 224 because she's on medication. So power phase one, power phase two are the when your hormones are at its lowest. So power phase two, your body has released all of that party that was going on during
Yeah. The
manifestation.
estrogen. Yeah.
It's all gone
It's
and
all
you hit
gone.
a low. And so when
Yeah.
your hormones are low, fasting is high
Yes.
and it loves low carb. And then we're on to day 20 through the first day of bleed week, and that is your nurture phase. Now, you would think, and back me up on this, Darcy, you would think this would be the most exciting part of your month because you get to bring in some really fun foods. You want to feed
Right.
progesterone. Progesterone loves carbs. We're not talking about donuts. We're not talking about
No. No
those, we're
nature's
talking about
food.
nature's carbs, the
Yes.
potatoes, the
Yeah.
squashes, the quinoa, beans, those kinds of things. And you would think
Right.
this would be our favorite time, but is it?
Um, well, I don't know if it's because I've been keto for so long, that no, it's not. Like I don't like how those carbs make me feel.
Mhm.
Feel like water's being retained around my ankles and my just all over. Um, and yeah, it's not my favorite. So I've found some certain foods that don't make me feel as swollen,
Mhm.
that are higher in carbs, and will feed my hormones the way they need to be fed.
Mhm.
I have a sweet choice and I have a non-sweet choice.
Mhm.
So now if I do it perfectly, I definitely don't hit the amount of carbs that is suggested, which is the max is 50 net carbs, which some
Mhm.
people, if they're like fruit and
Yeah.
vegetable-aholics,
Yeah.
they easily hit that. But for me, it was I can barely get 90. So,
Hmm.
and that's total carbs. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard.
it's hard. It might sound easy if you are just walking off the street and saying, "Oh, I eat all this stuff all the time," and not feel
Yeah.
triggered. And that's the other thing. It can trigger some of our clients, and it
Hmm.
doesn't do them very well to
Hmm.
continue on.
Right.
But I will say during this phase, um, now it was different with like you talked about like the first 4 months.
Hmm.
Each month that I did this, my cycle did something real wonky
Hmm.
and real weird. And it was bizarre, but as I continued it,
Yeah.
I didn't give up. As I
Hmm.
continued it, things started to just pan out where I am so consistent. I do not have, I'm going to say rarely have any bloating before my cycle starts. I
Yeah.
rarely even know that it is coming around the corner.
Yeah.
Unless something different in my schedule in my life has thrown me off. Sometimes I'll get moody. And sometimes, I will have that hankering, but
Hmm.
for the most part, I do not know when my cycle is coming.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And it takes about 4 months to regulate that.
Yeah.
When we talk about PCOS, it was very fascinating to do a study on that when I became certified with fasting like a girl. It was a great certification, by the way. But PCOS is so easily explained when we break down to what estrogen wants, and we are feeding. Estrogen hates carbohydrates. And when we feed estrogen carbohydrates, it messes with the testosterone. It brings in more testosterone than that is needed. It is literally PCOS is a direct result of what we're eating. When we feed that estrogen, all of those carbohydrates, it makes more and more and more testosterone, and it has the reverse effect of what we want it to do. If you want to study up on this, read the book Fasting Like a Girl. In this book, she says if you are high carbohydrate diet eating 6 meals a day, you may inadvertently be keeping your insulin too high for estrogen's liking. Excessive insulin not only creates a deficiency in estrogen production, so you're not creating as much estrogen when you're feeding it, but long term, it can lead to a hyperproduction of testosterone. This is the classic PCOS
Mm.
scenario. And so you can reverse PCOS just by what you feed it and when you feed it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to throw this to you though, because you're going to have people come to you and say, "Oh, well, I eat healthy. I don't
Hmm.
overeat. I don't overindulge. And
Hmm.
I'm thin, I'm healthy, and I still have PCOS."
Hmm.
I want to challenge you to think about, okay, if you believe that you are keeping all those things on the low end and you still have PCOS, I want you to look at the products that you're consuming
Hmm. What are
and
you
putting on your
eating?
body,
Hmm.
because we in our society today have estrogen mimickers. And when you have these estrogen mimickers, you put these products on your skin, it turns it into estrogen, doesn't know what to do with it, and then it turns it as fat storage or goes and
Hmm.
messes up your body in other ways. So
Hmm.
you also have to look at, okay, what products am I putting on my body? What
Yeah.
am I, it was going down to even, with since COVID, we had been overusing abusing paper plates. And they
Hmm.
weren't just the paper plates, they were the nice,
Styrofoam. Mm.
no, not the styrofoam, but the thick ones,
Oh,
that
yes.
have
Yes.
heavy duty. And
Yeah.
so I was thinking to myself the other day, I'm like, we put hot foods on these paper plates, and it has this clear coating on the top, and I guarantee it's
Hmm.
not just wax. That is
No.
probably some sort of plastic, and which is not good for my body.
Hmm.
So I'm like, and my kids were starting to complain, like we never have real plates. So it was really bad. Raise your hand if you are like
Nope,
that.
you're alone, Darcy. You're alone.
I'm
Yes.
so alone since COVID and
No.
not wanting to do everybody's dishes.
No, well, mine didn't have anything to do with COVID. I just didn't want to do dishes. Yeah, but it's
But
so
yeah,
true. We got to look at the whole picture.
yes,
This is where we in society, we want quick fixes and we want to say, well, this is a direct result of this when it's a combination of the things that we're putting in
yeah,
our body, both toxins, both topically as well as what we're
yeah,
ingesting. But the majority does rely and does revolve around insulin and
yeah.
insulin response. So we can have, we know we call them what skinny, fat, skinny people, skinny, fat people.
There needs
What
to
is
be a better name for that.
there does, but that's a real thing. Like,
It is a real
well,
thing.
you're skinny, so
Yeah,
you must not have, PCOS. You must not struggle with the same thing I do.
you
And
must
that's
not
not the
have.
case.
Yeah,
Not the
but
case at all.
most likely your organs are covered with the fat that is being
Right.
stored. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
it's
and the
almost as
mhm.
I was gonna say it's almost as if, when people are trying to defend the way they eat, it's like an
Mhm.
excuse
It is
to not
yeah,
change the way
it
they
is an
eat.
excuse. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
wasn't ready to change the way I ate until it was almost too late.
Yeah.
And that and sometimes here's another frustration that I have when a client comes to me who does not have a severe overweight problem. It is very, very hard for them to change their lifestyle because they are not working for something. If they don't come to me with severe diabetes or severe
Right.
weight problems, it is much harder to work with that client than it is to for someone who comes in with a weight problem or with,
Yeah.
because they don't have anything that they're working for. They don't have anything to keep them healthy. And that's why we are the way we are in society and not caring about health so much or caring about the non-scale victories so much is because if you don't have a weight problem, it's harder to work for it.
Right.
So that's why
Right.
we want to teach you and we want to teach women there is a time to eat carbs. There is a time you need more carbs to feed those hormones that are naturally happening every month. And you want to feed them and you want to starve the bad guys, right? And so
Right. Right.
we want to teach and we want to change the lives of women to where they don't look at food as simply enjoyment, but they look at it as medicine.
Right.
And they know we want to get you to where you know exactly where you are in the month, that you don't even need to look at a calendar, that you know
Right. Yeah.
exactly where you are in the month because of the way your body feels. So we're excited about Ageless Keto. Again, it's not a cheap program. It is not cheap. I will just be the first one to step up there and say that because we spend so much time individually and put hours and hours and hours with these women that are ready to heal. So if you want to go check that out, it is live on our site. I turned it on last week without telling anybody. So those links are live on our website. Go to kmhealthcoaching.org. And I believe we have a site just for women. Okay, for women only. We do have a for men only site on there now.
Yes.
So we don't want to leave those guys out, but we have a for women only, and you can go check out what Ageless Keto is all about. Basically, you will have about three choices when you go in there. Choice one is for you to simply learn. We get you for 3 months. We just want you to simply learn how to do it. The second one is if you have some more healing that needs to happen, if you have PCOS or if you have something like that, there's something specific that you need to heal, we need you for 6 months. And then the final one is if you are severely ill, if you have severe symptoms and severe diseases, we need you for a year. So we have three choices in that program that we have launched. We've had some trial clients. We've had some secret clients come through there. We've put a lot of our own personal clients on this program. I have a couple
Hmm.
on it right now
Hmm.
where they're learning. A couple of menopause ladies
Yeah.
who are learning. If you're on menopause, I got to do this thing a little bit different with you. We do a 28-day reset with you first, and then we take you to two other programs, whether it be a 4-2-1 program or a 5-1-1 program. So we do things just a little bit differently with you so that because you don't have your cycle to go by. So
Yeah.
Darce, this was a
Yeah.
fun show today. We
It
hope
was.
that this has helped you. The best thing you can do if you are interested in this program, the best thing that you can do right now for us, Number 1, track your food. Number 2, track your cycle. We need to know when you come to us, what is your cycle? When are you going to start your cycle that month? What does your cycle look like? Are you a 28-day cycle? Are you in perimenopause where you don't know when your cycle is coming? So start tracking that now before you even go to our website so that we've got that data when we do a free call with you.
Right. And if you don't know, like we said, you can start with the moon phases. And I know that sounds like pretty kooky, but I've basically proven since last month, I even looked at that. Like my cycle started on the full moon. So it's been very consistent with that too. So
Yeah.
go ahead and follow that. Start on well, no, that's not what we're asking them to do though, is it?
What, to start tracking?
Yeah, to start, I guess, to figure
Yeah.
out when your cycle is. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not too
Yeah.
far off. I was
No,
thinking,
you're right
wait a
on.
minute.
You're right on.
All right. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
Dr. Bindi says, if we could literally change the world, women could change the world if we put an entire company full of women in the manifestation phase in one
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
We could fix the economy. We could fix any problem that was ever presented to mankind because that is the most powerful
So true.
phase of the cycle.
Right.
So,
Totally get that.
and we also have marriage advice.
Apparently we do.
We do.
Oh, we
Men,
do.
which phase is the best phase for you to ask for a new Jeep? That is the question.
Yeah,
Can you
that's
guess
it.
that? Do you know that one, Darce?
Well, I do know because you just told us what phase, right? And we're the
Which phase to
kindest. What
not,
not?
when to
Do
not
not.
ask your wife for a Jeep.
And if you do, make sure she has had some carbs.
Oh, you guys, we drop a live
Uh,
no, it's not a live podcast, but
no,
we
we're
drop a
not. Yeah.
new podcast every Tuesday morning. I believe the one right before this one is our guys doing their
Oh.
podcast. I want to say that very carefully because I've not screened it yet. Um, but according to plans, you should have heard our husbands the last session, the last podcast. If you didn't, it means it went drastically wrong. And
Oh
and
my
Monica
goodness.
had to do extra editing and it's not ready yet.
Yes. According to Mark, he thinks that we are going to go viral on this one
Really?
and we're going to be multimillionaires
So
because of
we may
this.
not even have reached this podcast yet because we've gone viral
We've
and we
gone
are
viral.
traveling the nation because our husbands talked about weight loss and marriage.
Right.
I
For
have
30
no
minutes.
idea. I have no idea what I'm going to listen to when I push play because we
Oh my
just recorded
goodness.
it last night. So
Yeah.
you may hear it and you may not.
Right.
Brian asked me, should I tell this story? And I said, you tell the people whatever you feel like they need to know. I have no idea what he's going to tell them.
Yeah. I'm curious, but I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. But every Tuesday morning we have
Uh,
a brand new one. If this has helped you, will you please leave us a review on the podcast listening stream? And would you share this with your family and friends? We would like to get this out to as many people as possible because we believe that this is a really, really important topic for women.
yes,
And if we can get the eating and if we can get the timing of our meals, if we can get that down, we could change the world. I just believe that. So.
I agree.
All right, guys, we will see you next Tuesday morning. Have a great one.
Bye.